everyone, Pratima here. So today I have the world's two best-selling flagship phones, the iPhone 17 Pro Max and the Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra. No matter how impressed I am with what Chinese brands have done this year, like the Vivo X200 Pro or the Xiaomi 15 Ultra, these are the two phones that contribute to more than 80% of the flagship sales. I was particularly impressed with the Galaxy S25 Ultra sales as it crossed 10 million units worldwide, and Apple has also reportedly increased the production of its Pro and Pro Max. So yeah, it's clear that when it comes to flagship smartphones, Samsung and Apple continue to dominate the game. At this point, the S25 Ultra is already 10 months old and the iPhone 17 Pro Max has just launched for around a month now. So this comparison is kind of boring. The real deal is going to be the comparison between the iPhone 17 Pro Max and the Galaxy S26 Ultra that is launching in January. But I am bringing this video just to show you the real weaknesses and strengths of both of these phones and what the S26 Ultra needs to do to be on par with the iPhone 17 Pro Max. Alright, let me start with the design, and here both of these phones take a completely different approach from each other. Samsung, as we know, has this signature boxy form factor that's actually to fit the S Pen, by the way, so these squared off frames make sense. But still, this design for me looks super classy and elegant, and for such a big phone, it surprisingly feels quite lightweight in the hand. In fact, it's 15 grams lighter than the 17 Pro Max. Now, when it comes to the iPhone 17 Pro Max, this is a first proper design refresh that we have seen in almost 5 years. And despite a lot of mixed opinions and the scratch gate issues, I honestly like this new design. Plus, this seamless curved frame around the back feels so smooth and comfortable to hold. It even reminded me a little of the iPhone 6. There's one interesting twist this year though. Apple has switched back to aluminum frames while Samsung is still using titanium. Now, if you remember, it was Apple that introduced titanium 2 years ago with the iPhone 15 Pro Max, calling it the strongest metal ever used on an iPhone. But now they have dropped it. They said aluminum helps with better heat dissipation, so the phone does not heat up as easily. And yeah, I would say that this is a fair trade-off. What I really appreciate about Apple this year is how tough the front display is. The new ceramic shield glass 2 is easily more scratch resistant than the one on Samsung's S25 Ultra. Actually, I've used the iPhone for more than 2 weeks now without a screen protector and not a single scratch so far. And because of most of the part on this phone being aluminum on the back, I actually feel like if both of these phones were to fall on concrete, the iPhone would survive with fewer cracks. Of course, both of them come with IP68 dust and water resistance, but Apple's rating is slightly more robust like before. The iPhone 17 Pro Max can survive being submerged a little deeper in water compared to Samsung. So overall, in terms of design and build quality, I will give a slight edge to the iPhone this year. Oh, and by the way, if you play a lot of games, you might actually prefer the iPhone even more. Its rounded design just feels a lot more comfortable for long gaming sessions. Samsung's boxy corners can get a bit uncomfortable to hold after a while. You will eventually, of course, get used to both of them. But yeah, in terms of pure hand comfort, the iPhone definitely wins this round. Alright, moving on to the display, both of these phones actually use Samsung-made panels, so as you would expect, the displays on both of them are fantastic. They're both super bright, super responsive, and just a joy to look at. The iPhone does get slightly brighter, but overall the difference isn't that noticeable in real-life usage. The color calibration is spot on too, and when it comes to HDR10 and 10 Plus feedback, both of these phones render videos pretty well. There is still no Dolby Vision on Samsung phones and Samsung TVs because of their strategic decision, as they are deeply invested in HDR10 Plus, and avoiding Dolby Vision kind of helps them push HDR10 Plus as the standard. The speakers are also excellent on both sides, so whether you're watching a movie or scrolling through Instagram Reels, the overall multimedia experience is top-notch on both. Now, Samsung does have one small advantage here. Its anti-reflective coating is just a bit better. So when you're using this phone under direct light or outdoors on a sunny day, you will notice fewer reflections on Samsung compared to the iPhone. Apple has also added its own anti-reflective glass this year as well, similar to what Samsung's been doing, but it still does not work quite as effectively. Apple has also brought an interesting new feature this time, PWM dimming control. Inside the settings menu on the iPhone 17 Pro Max, you can actually turn off PWM dimming completely. So if you're someone who's sensitive to low frequency flicker, and if you often get eye strain, headaches, or fatigue while using your phone at low brightness, this feature does make a huge difference. Samsung, on the other hand, does not have this option yet. Still, I think both Apple and Samsung should start using higher frequency PWM dimming systems like what we have been seeing on most Chinese brands for years now. Alright, let's talk about the performance now. So on the iPhone, we get Apple's brand new A19 Pro chip, whereas Samsung is running the slightly older Snapdragon 8 Elite for Galaxy. Because Samsung is using a last-gen chip this year, benchmark results clearly show that the A19 Pro holds a lead both in terms of GPU and CPU performance. But honestly, in real-life use, that difference isn't as big as those benchmarks make it to look. Both phones are incredibly fast and smooth in day-to-day usage, be it multitasking, opening heavy apps, or switching between them. Even when it comes to gaming, both phones are absolute beasts. Titles like PUBG, Genshin Impact, and other graphically demanding games run flawlessly on both. That said, if you are a pro gamer, you will probably notice that the iPhone feels just a little smoother. For example, here's some data from my PerfDog app, which shows that during crowded moments in PUBG, the S25 Ultra experienced a few frame drops, while the iPhone renders those crucial moments better. That's purely down to better optimization on Apple's side. And finally, the iPhone 17 Pro Max now comes with a vapor chamber cooling solution just like on the S25 Ultra, so no major overheating issues on either of them. I played Genshin Impact for 30 minutes, and as you can see from this temperature data, there isn't a lot of difference. What's great on these phones is that you just let the phone rest for a couple of minutes and both of them cool down perfectly fine. Now, coming to iOS versus Android optimization, we all know that Apple still nails it here. System-level optimization on iPhones, as always, has been rock solid. Apps like Instagram, Snapchat, or Facebook Messenger simply run better on iPhones. For example, when uploading photos to Snapchat or going live on Instagram, the video quality looks noticeably sharper and cleaner on the iPhone compared to Samsung. But when it comes to AI features, Samsung is just way ahead right now. One of my favorite things I use on my S25 Ultra is the built-in AI grammar correction on Samsung's keyboard. I use this daily, especially when replying to work emails or WhatsApp messages. And just the other day, while I was watching a Premier League match, it was Man City versus Brentford, and the camera showed a celebrity in the crowd, and I didn't know who the celebrity was, so I asked both the phones to identify who it was. Siri could not recognize it, but Samsung's Gemini instantly gave me the correct answer. And I think I know why Apple Intelligence is such a disappointment. I guess Apple never really wanted to jump on the AI train in the first place, or at least not this early. But once every other phone maker had some form of AI in their products overnight, and with AI startups like OpenAI and Anthropic achieving the unicorn status in such an unprecedented fashion, Apple investors panicked, clearly. So Apple did what any other publicly traded company would do, rush the market with some half-baked products just to give in to the overpouring shareholder demands. I think you and I both know how that story went. Apple was even sued for false advertising of the iPhone 16's Apple Intelligence features, which are still a no-show, by the way, and the company was sued by its own shareholders a couple of months ago for allegedly overstating AI progress. Maybe I'm gaslighting myself, but I think that in some way, Apple still has a big vision for Apple Intelligence about how it's going to seamlessly work across all of the Apple products and all that dance. But for now, AI remains a big question mark for Apple. Okay, on the flip side, when it comes to customization, Apple has definitely opened up a lot with the iOS 26. I can finally change ringtones, customize my lock screen in a better way, and do a lot of things that used to be Android only. But even then, Samsung's customization options are on another level, especially with the Good Lock app. The kind of tweaks and personalization I can do with it is just unmatched. Now coming to the battery, the iPhone 17 Pro Max packs a 4823 mAh battery versus 5000 mAh on the S25 Ultra. But even with a smaller capacity, the iPhone actually lasts longer. In my test, doing the exact same set of tasks on both of these phones, social media, a bit of gaming, camera use and watching videos, the iPhone gave me around 15% better battery backup than the S25 Ultra. So yeah, both of them have really solid endurance overall, but I would give them only an A- grade for battery life. The only reason I wouldn't call them A+ is because almost all of the Chinese brands now have set the bar ridiculously high with a massive 6500 to even 7500 mAh silicon carbon batteries with their current flagship offerings. Alright, now let's finally talk about the cameras, and this year the iPhone 17 Pro Max brings a couple of noticeable upgrades. First, Apple has upgraded the selfie camera. It's now a 24 megapixel square sensor, and second, the telephoto lens at the back is now a 48 megapixel 4x camera. Apart from that, the main and the ultra-wide cameras are basically identical to last year's 16 Pro Max. So when I compared it directly with the Galaxy S25 Ultra, I didn't see any drastic differences or a sense of upgrade on the iPhone 17 Pro Max from its main and the ultra-wide lenses. Both take excellent photos. As usual, Samsung delivers that typical cool tone with that punchy saturated color, while the iPhone sticks to warmer and flatter but more natural color profile. Of course, you can always tweak things using photographic styles on the iPhone, and overall both of the phone click beautiful photos 95% of the time, while 5% of the time both of these phones are a little inconsistent. For example, in this shot of the Buddha Stupa, the iPhone handled the highlights slightly better, and in this low light scene, glare control is noticeably better controlled on the iPhone as well. And look at this portrait I shot in low light. Samsung completely messes up the skin tone here compared to the iPhone. That said, in a few other situations, Samsung's dynamic range is actually better than the iPhone. Likewise, in some photos, the way Samsung crushes shadows a little makes the image look more contrasty and natural, whereas the iPhone tends to lift the shadows a bit too much. For close-ups too, Samsung has the upper hand with better focus and cleaner depth separation, while the iPhone sometimes struggles to lock focus properly at very short distances. But then again, look at this photo of our office dog Jenny. The iPhone nails it. The fur texture and the color details are just spot on, and the focus is perfect. So at this stage, I would honestly call the main and the ultra-wide camera 50-50 between the two. If I really had to nitpick, I would say Apple's overall image optimization feels slightly more consistent. Even the portraits from the telephoto lens of the iPhone 17 Pro Max is slightly better than Samsung. That 4x framing of the iPhone looks more natural to me because the 5x portraits on Samsung can sometimes feel a little too zoomed in for a portrait shot. But yeah, when it comes to portrait photography, both of these phones have matured a lot and now deliver excellent results. But I personally like the depth and framing on the iPhone a bit more. However, once you start pushing beyond 8x, 10x and even like 40x zoom, Samsung easily takes the lead. It uses AI to smooth out the details, maybe a bit too much at times, but it still manages to get more usable detail overall. The iPhone, on the other hand, starts looking grainy and mushy once you go past that 10x mark. Now, coming to the main camera, there's honestly no competition this year. The iPhone 17 Pro Max is just way ahead. This new 24 megapixel square sensor gives you a much wider field of view, which is great for group selfies. And I love that you can now switch to landscape orientation for selfies and videos with just a single tap, which is like super handy for vlogging or while traveling. So yeah, Apple has clearly made a big hardware jump on the front camera this time. But the sad news is that the upcoming S26 Ultra apparently won't be getting a selfie camera upgrade at all, which is kind of disappointing. Alright, finally, let's talk about the videography aspect. And while both of these phones can shoot great videos when the light is even, but in very challenging conditions, Samsung struggles at times with exposure control, especially when you're shooting against the sun or in scenes that have high contrast. The iPhone handles highlight and shadow transitions a lot more gracefully, giving you that consistent output almost all of the time. And this is the case not only while checking videos from the main camera, but also when I was taking portrait video or a selfie video or an ultra-wide video. iPhone just gets the exposure handling better. Even as you see this slow-mo video, the iPhone footage is slightly more stable. One thing I really miss on both of these phones is proper macro photography. Both of them rely on the ultra-wide camera for macro shots instead of using the telephoto lens, which results in less impressive close-ups. I am hoping that with this S26 Ultra, Samsung replaces the current 10-megapixel 3x telephoto lens with a more versatile one capable of delivering high-quality macro photos as well. Alright, so I think I have said almost everything there is to say about these two phones, and to put it simply, both the iPhone 17 Pro Max and the Galaxy S25 Ultra have their own strengths and weaknesses. Starting with the 17 Pro Max, its biggest strengths are you get incredibly reliable videography across all lighting conditions, a massive improvement in the selfie camera, and like always, the Apple ecosystem just works seamlessly whether you're using a MacBook, an Apple Watch, or AirPods. It also delivers slightly better gaming performance and great app optimization, as I mentioned earlier. Battery life has improved noticeably too, and if you're using Apple's new official 40-watt charger, charging speeds are finally pretty fast too, almost similar to the S25 Ultra's 45-watt charging speed. Now, talking about its weaknesses, I think the zoom photos are still not on Samsung's level despite the new telephoto lens. Up to 8x zoom looks fine, but beyond that, Samsung still leads by a clear margin. And probably the biggest letdown this year for the iPhone is Apple's failed commitment with the AI experience. Even basic AI tasks feel very unfinished and clunky, whereas Samsung's AI features are just so good and refined in comparison. Speaking of which, the S25 Ultra has its own share of strengths and weaknesses too. Samsung has been improving the Ultra lineup year after year, and this one feels very close to perfect. For me, the S Pen remains one of the most useful and unique things to have in the pocket, and once you get used to it, it's hard to go back. As for weaknesses, I'd say the camera has still some room to improve, especially with glare issues and selfie quality, which feels pretty average compared to the iPhone. And of course, videography is not as consistent. Hopefully, we will see those things ironed out with the S26 Ultra, and it will be a great time to compare the S26 Ultra and the iPhone 17 Pro Max in a couple of months' time. Alright everyone, that was all for our very detailed comparison of the iPhone 17 Pro Max and the Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra. Which one would you choose if you had to choose today? Or do let me know in the comments if you would wait for the S26 Ultra. And while you're there, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit that notifications icon. Saying this, I'm Pratima, and thank you so much for watching.